Me and Islam have never had a connection. I'll tell you right now, he gonna know a lot about me if we ever get booked to fight. And not only that, don't get it twisted. The people that he has struggled with and the people that have shown a couple holes in his game, I'm gonna be his worst nightmare.
All right, I was wrong, ladies and gentlemen. I was freaking wrong. I picked Joaquin Buckley to beat Kamaru Usman because Kamaru Usman has not fought in like almost 2 years, and I thought genuinely that Joaquin Buckley would have done some great things against Kamaru Usman. Granted, he did make some pretty good improvements in the final round of the fight after being freaking held down and dominated and literally freaking controlled round after round after round. Um, yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear to say that Kamaru Usman, is probably going to be fighting Bilal Muhammad next, and I think that's probably going to be the fight that people are going to be pushing for, especially since Kamaru Usman, has been having this little, back and forth with Bilal Muhammad, and I think that Bilal Muhammad is probably going to be looking to, probably fight Usman next. I did think that if Usman lost this fight, he's probably going to retire, and I still think that if he loses in his next fight, he's probably most likely going to retire. Now, I do think that if he beats Bilal Muhammad, they're probably going to give him a title shot, and then JDM is probably going to whoop his ass, or whoever is champion. I think that JDM probably will stay champion, and I think that he will definitely beat up Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman, in my opinion, just doesn't have the best striking. I think that the main thing that got him the W in this round is obviously keeping up in the striking, as well as literally just controlling Joaquin Buckley, using his grappling and wrestling to win the fight. Yeah. I think that Joaquin Buckley, was doing pretty well in the striking, especially in the final rounds. He did make some pretty important adjustments, but it was just way too freaking late. It was just way too freaking late. But without a doubt, this is a pretty freaking bad loss. This was a fight that was supposed to get Joaquin Buckley, into title fight contention, and he lost to a almost 40-year-old Kamaru Usman who hasn't had a fight in almost 2 years, and I think that this is going to be a pretty important moment for him, whether or not he comes back from this loss. I think that he will, I just think that he needs to obviously, tighten up some of his grappling and wrestling. But, I think that moving forward in the welterweight division, this is going to be a pretty interesting one because what's next for Joaquin Buckley after this one? I mean, who knows? I think that he's probably going to take a little break. We're probably not going to hear much from Joaquin Buckley in a while. I think that Kamaru Usman is probably going to use this win to pretty much propel him towards getting a title shot, which I think that he's not going to win. I think that they're probably going to make Kamaru Usman versus Bilal Muhammad next, and I think that that's pretty fair to say. But other than that, yeah, I was pretty let down by the performance of Joaquin Buckley. This dude just couldn't get up, just literally could not freaking get up. And I think that if the fight was a little bit more of a stand-up, type fight, I think that Joaquin Buckley would have probably ended up winning the fight, based on points. But anyways, I was wrong in this one. I can admit to that. I was pretty freaking wrong. I picked Joaquin Buckley, but it is what it is. What's even more crazy about this all is Joaquin Buckley was talking the most shit earlier this week, saying that eventually Islam Makhachev is gonna have to face him, and Joaquin Buckley was gonna whoop his ass or some shit. Bro, he just got freaking dominated by Kamaru Usman, a guy that has absolutely no cartilage on his freaking knees and just got held down and freaking gut fucked round after round after round. What is Islam Makhachev, arguably one of the greatest grapplers that we've ever seen in the sport, gonna do to Joaquin Buckley? Joaquin Buckley needs to go back in the gym, watch this fight, film study the fuck out of it, and absolutely make the adjustments to come back, because this is going to be the thing that people are going to target, no matter what. People are going to target Joaquin Buckley's wrestling and grappling from this point forward because they know that it's lacking, and that's absolutely, that's freaking devastating for Joaquin Buckley to know. I still think that Joaquin Buckley should have been the logical pick. I mean, anybody out there that watches the sport of MMA knows that Joaquin Buckley has been the more active fighter, having some really, really good performances, knocking out people, or pretty much putting away people that were supposed to beat him. Everybody's saying that Joaquin Buckley got fraud checked. I wouldn't necessarily say that this fight was a fraud check. I think that if any fight would have been like a fraud check, it would have been the Stephen Wonderboy Thompson fight. I think that if Stephen Wonderboy Thompson would have beat Joaquin Buckley, I think that, yeah, we could have said that Joaquin Buckley got fraud checked, but I don't see it that way. I really don't. I mean, Joaquin Buckley lost to a former champion, I think that he made some dumb fucking mistakes, some dumb, really, really bad mistakes, you know. But I mean, let's just be honest. I think the most logical pick between the two was obviously Joaquin Buckley, without a doubt. When I made that predictions video earlier this week, I did say that Usman is coming from the better training camp. He's coming from the better coaches. He's coming from the better training facility with the better training partners. I mean, what does Joaquin Buckley need to do now? I think that maybe he should reconsider, you know, moving to a better camp, you know, getting some different training partners, getting some more reputable names under his belt, you know, in terms of who he trains with, because obviously this just wasn't a good performance from somebody who's supposed to be one of the top contenders in the welterweight divisions in terms of grappling and wrestling. Like, how the hell are you having that much trouble getting the fight back into the 50-50? I think that definitely Joaquin Buckley should try, or at least, you know, get some rounds in at a different camp, at a different gym, you know, with a different coach, with some different training partners. I think that could definitely benefit him a lot more. Okay, look, what is next for Usman? I think from this point forward, like I said, I think that they're probably going to give him Bilal Muhammad. I think that that's a pretty good matchup. I love that matchup, actually. You know, I think that would be a good fight, you know, for both of them. Like I said earlier in this video, I think that Usman would probably try to milk the fuck out of that win. You know, if he beats, you know, Bilal Muhammad, he's gonna try to milk it as much as possible and say that, oh, I beat the freaking former champion. I should deserve to fight for the title next. You know, and obviously, most likely they are gonna give it to him. I do think that there's also a pretty big possibility that they give him, you know, the cuck, what's his name, Ian Gary. I think that probably they're gonna make Usman versus, you know, Ian Gary next. You know, there's like a 50-50 chance of both of those fights going down. And I think that both of those fights are pretty interesting matchups. You know, I think that Ian Gary probably takes the win. But yeah, I think that giving the you know, Usman the W in this fight was something that the UFC probably wasn't banking on. I think that the UFC probably would have hoped to see Joaquin Buckley, you know, get the dub in this matchup so they could continue to build around the welterweight division. But it is what it is. You know, unfortunately, Joaquin Buckley just doesn't know how to, you know, handle takedown defense whatsoever. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, ladies and gentlemen. As always, it's a pleasure. Peace out. Subscribe to the channel. Have a good one.